Hi, Julia.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello,
Hi,
everyone.
everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, nice to see you all
Hello.
again.
Nice to see you again. Thanks so much.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Nice to see you again, guys.
Hello,
Nice
everyone.
to
Hello,
see
Hi,
you.
everyone.
startups. Hi, mentors.
Hello. I'm really happy that a lot of people survived after yesterday's intensive day and ready for the new one. Though also a very insightful one. So I will just keep admitting people. So welcome to your day 2 of masterclasses and workshops. We are gonna again have 3 sessions today, and kicking off this first one in the format of the masterclass for 1 hour. But before we start, we have a quick announcement. Tiffany is gonna make some organizational part. We've heard you about asking questions, so decided to bring in something new. Tiffany, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
This is a brilliant idea. Thank you so much for giving us this chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I know
You're
we
so
were
adaptive.
we were a little bit suffering hardness yesterday. So we are gonna using a software called this Slido today. So either you can access by typing the slido.com, the URL, or just scan the QR code here. So once you access it, if you like access the URL, you're gonna see the line here, putting your passcode. So passcode is 2627381. I'm gonna chat this one passcode URL and QR code and also this tag now. So you're gonna just like go to the slido.com or scan the QR code and put the passcode, and you will see the this screen. So you can type your question and put your name as startup ID like that, 1111, and send it. And then you will see your question would be uploaded like that. And also, if you see like other people's questions as well in the dashboard, so if you like their idea and their questions, you can put the like thumbs up here. So it's kind of like a voting system. The more you guys are voting, like the question would be coming up on the order. So for that one, we are not gonna like make you guys wait a long time to raise hands, and somebody's don't know how to raise hands in the Zoom as well, right? So we are gonna try for this session. If it works well, we are gonna keep this way. But feels like there's something issues and like something unfairness happens. So we are gonna try to fix that issue and try to do something else. So we are all startups, so let's do this way. And let's make a trial error and test it out. So we are gonna figure out the best way suitable for us. Does it make sense, everyone? It's easy,
Yeah,
huh?
good. But can you share in chat?
That's so great.
Can you share the
Thank
QR
you.
code?
So I'm gonna share everything in the chat as well. So let's try
Okay.
out Jamie's session. Yeah. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
share
please.
the deck, QR code, and URL as well.
Brilliant. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
we
we can.
can.
Excellent. I'm going to give just a minute or so for everyone to load up Slido so you can all start submitting lots of questions, and then we'll kick on. So I'll just give you a minute.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Amazing.
you guys are.
Amazing how long 1 minute can feel. Sorry, Tiffany.
Oh, I saw the like people's testing as well, so I think we can start.
Fantastic. Let's go for it. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jamie. My nickname is the Ginger Ninja because I have orange hair. You'll notice that that's quite a theme throughout my life. I think nearly every company that I've branded has had some form of orange in it. So that's the reason why, if you're wondering. And today we're going to do a talk on design thinking for startups. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to tell you part one. I'm going to do some startup stories to show you the importance of design thinking and how it's played such a really key role in my life and my startups. I'm going to tell you about 2 of my startups. And really that's because I want to talk about my favorite subject, which is me. I don't really care about anyone else. That's all I want to talk about. And if you haven't noticed, I've got a very British sense of humor. So there's heavy sarcasm there if any of you aren't getting that. Second part is going to be about some design thinking fundamentals. So I've got 3,500 slides to go through.
Hello, Annan. Good morning.
Oh, hello,
Hi.
Mohammed. Let's take you on mute. Make sure you're on mute. To take, 3,500 slides to take you through in about 10 minutes. So that'll be lightning fast. And then I'm going to give you a cheat sheet before we have a Q&A at the end. And we'll try and do some group dance moves just to have some fun. Okay. So just a little bit about me. So I founded 3 startups, 2 B2B fintechs and 1 B2C technology company. And I founded the Product Coach to help people avoid all of the startup mistakes that I've made. And I've made pretty much nearly every single one on the journey from seed to Series A. So I do this a lot. I come to accelerators. I talk about my experiences. I run coaching workshops at accelerators, incubators, NGOs, different types of tech companies. And the topic that I typically focus most upon is why do startups fail? And this is a lovely study by CB Insights. They looked at 110 different startup postmortems, and the top 2 reasons why startups fail are running out of cash or failing to raise new capital or not finding a market need. And I think not finding a market need is really a cause of running out of cash. If you find a really strong market need and you can build the right product to it, you shouldn't have running out of cash problems, and it should become a lot easier for you to raise money. So I think all of these are linked to the way that you find the right problem to solve. And design thinking is absolutely key to that. Now, there aren't a lot of resources out there that are designed for very early stage founders. So I think a lot of what we're doing here and a lot of what this program is about is trying to tailor a lot of resources that are made for later stage startups to the really, really early stage that many of you are at. So first thing I want to talk about is some founder nightmares, because I find that often dreams turn into nightmares. And there's a couple of key ones that we want to think about and try and solve with design thinking. So the first is the ego echo chamber. This is the #1 problem that I find in early stage startups. It's building a product that nobody wants. And that's typically because you try and create something in a vacuum. You try and create it in an echo chamber. You need to get out there and speak to as many people as possible to avoid it. Many people build products on quicksand. If you want to build really good products, they need to be built on strong foundations, and those foundations are built during customer discovery. If you have really good validation and you've done really good customer discovery, you'll avoid building a product that sits on quicksand and it won't sink into quicksand and disappear. Another one of the most common nightmares that I see is a Frankensoft, right? This is a product that's been built for everyone, and you can't build a product for everyone. You can only build a product for a specific set of customers and a really specific set of use cases or problems or outcomes. So try and avoid building a product for everyone as much as you possibly can. Be really focused, be really disciplined on who you're building it for. And the final one, the most common one I see, is a feature factory. This is for people who focus more on building than on solving people's problems. That's more on outputs over outcomes. Outcomes are focused on what the customer achieves and what your business achieves, whereas output is how much code did we ship last month, how much product did we build. You want to focus on the former rather than the latter. So I'm going to tell you a tale of my 2 startups, and this is very much a story of if it doesn't kill you, it will make you stronger, but only if you learn from it. And learning is such a key first principle to hold on to here. You want to keep a learning mindset throughout your startup journey. So when I started my first startup, these were my expectations. We started up, we very quickly raised a lot of money, as you'll see, and I thought it was my destiny to get millions of revenue and IPO in 5 years or less. And you're going to see that the roadmap of reality intervened here and took me on a very different journey. So I'm going to tell you about 2 of my startups. They're both B2B fintechs. One is called BondCube, the other is called MPR Markets. So for those of you that are first children in here like me, you'll know that first children are always the favorites. For everyone else in the family, second, third, maybe fourth children. Sadly, if you haven't realized this already, first childs are always the favorite, and BondCube is definitely my first child. So even though it was very, very badly behaved, like most first children are, it ended up being my favorite child. Some of you might remember the financial crisis of 2009. Nuf, I'll answer questions at the end. Financial crisis of 2009 is what this product is built for. And you don't have to know the detail, but the financial crisis made some huge regulatory changes in financial markets all over the world. Very boring regulatory changes, but they had a big impact on the way that banks could make money and run their business in a very particular market called the bond market. The bond market is built of sellers of bonds and buyers of bonds. These are typically pension funds. Anyone who's got a pension or who is thinking about getting one in the future, you'll end up holding bonds in your pension. And the bank sits in the middle and plays a role called the market maker. And effectively, they buy from sellers and they sell to buyers. And what happened in the financial crisis is they bought too many bad bonds from sellers, got caught holding on to them, taking too much risk, and nobody wanted to buy them. We had to bail them out. So regulators came along and said, you're not allowed to do that anymore. You can't buy bonds from people and hold them. You can't take any risk. You have to match a buyer and a seller together perfectly. And we thought, great, there's a diagram here. We're going to stick our logo in it and build a tech platform, because that sounds like we're matching different customers, buyers and sellers together. That's effectively what BondCube was. It was a matching platform for buyers and sellers of bonds. So you're going to hear me talk a lot about testing. We didn't think about how we would test our idea, but that's what you should do with all ideas. You should really think about, okay, we've got an idea. Is it any good or not? Do customers actually want it? But we didn't think about that. We were very much driven by our egos. And that's what happens a lot as founders. You need an ego to start your startup, but you need to remove your ego and think about, what are we going to learn? How are we going to test this? And think in your customer's shoes and in their mindset. So we made a prototype video. We raised 5 million euros very quickly, which was quite surprising. Early stage pre-seed round. That increased our sense of ego. And then I very quickly signed 250 B2B customers with an early stage contract, which typically gets called an LOI. And we then went into full build mode and launched our platform. Now, the problem was it took 13 months for us to build our platform. So we spent way too long building in our ego echo chamber without taking that platform to customers. We built a product for ourselves rather than for our customers, and that would cause us some very, very severe problems later on. The other problem we had is that when we built this product, we did so with a CTO who used a methodology called waterfall. And waterfall is where you plan everything up front and then you go and build everything. And he initially said it would take 6 months to build. It ended up taking 13 months to build. That caused us a lot of problems, took us way too long, didn't get any feedback, didn't get any learning. And the day we released it to our customers, we realized it didn't work for what they needed. So we had to suspend our CTO. It's actually something our investors did. We brought in a new CTO who taught us this thing called Agile, which we'd never heard of. And we started this new mindset, which was, what do we need to learn? How can we build it? How can we test it? How can we measure how it performs, right? This very, very simple loop that we were trying to learn here. And the key problem that we realized is we didn't validate early enough. And that would eventually go on to kill our company. So we grew to thousands of customers, $50 billion in daily order volume. We were close to doing millions of revenue, but we got stuck with the wrong product, and that eventually meant that we ran out of cash. And the journey that we took our investors on meant that they hated us so much that they wanted to liquidate the company. So for us, that was a fundamental mistake of not trying to learn as early as possible in the journey and validate what we believe to be true with our customers. So after that startup experience, okay, where I had to liquidate my company, I read a book called Testing Business Ideas, and that introduced me to this concept of the iterative process and design thinking, okay? And it helped me to boil down my startup to 3 core components: an idea, a business model, and a value proposition. We've already been covering value propositions. We're going to talk more about business models, but it also taught me a process about how to go and validate whether my ideas were any good and whether what I believed about my customer was actually true, because I'm not my customer. I have to go and learn as much as possible from my customers. So it taught me this process: empathize, understand my customer's needs, define a clear point of view based on those needs, generate some ideas around it that aren't just my ideas, but are really informed by what my customers feel, think, believe, do, and how they behave. Build a prototype to represent those ideas, which doesn't necessarily have to be in code, and then test to gather feedback. Now, what I very quickly learned is that this is not a process. It's a loop. This is something, as a startup founder, you're going to be continuously doing, particularly if you're building the product and technology and customer and sales function in your business. This is a philosophy that you need to teach at a very early stage into the way that you build your company and for everyone that you hire. So this is a loop you're going to continuously repeat over time. So this is my second child. Much better behaved, much higher achiever, NPL Markets. And this is very much where I learned to experiment and test and learn and improve and iterate over time. So I'm not going to bore you with the details of the startup. It was in non-performing loan markets. It's a B2B fintech. We were helping banks get rid of bad loans. And there's a lot of bad loans in Europe. There's a lot of bad loans around the world. They sit on banks' balance sheets, and it prevents them from lending more money because they have to hold money against it, so they can't lend anymore. But it also reduces their share price, which makes their shareholders very, very upset. So the European Union, like every good regulator, came along and said, hey, this needs to change. We need a transaction platform here. And you might notice that there's a common theme with my thinking, because I saw a market with some sellers, with some buyers, with someone in the middle. I put my logo in the middle of it and thought, yeah, I'm going to build a business out of that. So I'm not a very original thinker here. I like putting my logos in diagrams. So how did we start doing it? Well, we started from a very different perspective. We started thinking about what are the risks that we need to think about up front? And typically risks fall into 3 different areas. So can we actually create the technology and data to deliver our value proposition? Well, we thought we needed to build a marketplace. That was fairly standard technology at the time. We weren't looking into anything like AI or quantum technologies, so relatively simple and straightforward to build a web platform to do that. We thought, can we build a business model here? Well, there's some brokers, there's some lawyers, there are different types of businesses in the market, but there's no actual marketplace platform. So definitely a risk for us. Did our customers actually want this thing? We had no idea. We hadn't spoken to many of them. We needed to go and do that. So that's our biggest risk. Do customers actually want this? So, we started in a very different place. So we went and spoke with hundreds of customers. I know the minimum that you're being told to go and speak to is 6. And I heard in the talk the other day that you should ideally go for 30. We went completely mad. We went and spoke with hundreds of customers, hundreds of different people. And the reason why we did that is to build a very, very clear picture of our market. Who are the key people we need to target? What's going to be our go-to-market strategy? What's going to be our product strategy? How are we going to build this thing? What features are we going to focus on first? What problems are we going to focus on first? What's the right landing page messaging we're going to build? How are we going to do marketing campaigns? All of that came from this research. It's a very solid foundation for us to build on. And what we understood is we're seeing a strong need, but with some very high complexity. Our marketplace doesn't have a structured bidding process in the way that these products are being sold. High legal costs, pricing is poor, data lacks a standard, pricing assets was difficult, and there was very, very high pain across a group of different customer personas. We have some very sophisticated investors and sellers. We have an inefficient and expensive broker sitting in the middle, and then we have a very unsophisticated group of people who don't know how to enter the market, but have a very high desire to get in there. So we've learned a lot about our market. That's a good thing. Do we go and build our product yet? Absolutely not. We need to go and run some action-based experiments. That's absolutely key. People will tell you a lot of different things. They'll say yes to your questions. They'll take your meetings, but they won't actually do anything about it. It's a big difference in what people believe they're going to do versus what they're actually going to do, what their behavior is. So we decided to test their behavior. So we did a little marketing campaign. We made a landing page. We put a meeting booking link on it. We created a non-functional prototype, so a vision of what our product could be in a design tool. And we went and demoed that to customers. We gave them a really tricky contract to sign. We knew it'd be painful for them to sign that contract and put legal resources in front of it. We managed to sign 100 letters of intent in 3 months. Now, that was a good signal, but we wanted to learn more and test more. So instead of going and creating a product, we created what's called a concierge MVP. So that's a product that's something that looks like a product, but it's actually a service. So people were uploading files of data to us. Again, we get to test, will they actually act? And then we hired 2 data analysts to do something with that data, to change it, to make it better, and then delivered it back to that customer. And through that process of working with about 60 to 70 of those customers who signed letters of intent, we learned an enormous amount about our value proposition, about the product that we needed to build without ever actually building a product. And we started charging customers money for that. So all through this process, we're able to have very strong validation, and we're getting to the point where people are actually paying us a fee to perform this service for them. All of that represents really good, strong traction, and we were able to raise 500K from angel investors. So each step of the way, we're learning from everything we do, we're testing it, we're iterating, we're changing over time. Now, all of that looks very unscalable. And this is a key philosophy for you to think about in the early stage. You want to do things that don't scale. You don't want to think about scale too early in the beginning, because scaling only happens when you've learned everything you need to know. You can start to scale when you've got a great product, when customers love it, when it's flying off the shelves, and you can't actually sell it quick enough. That's when you want to scale. But in the early stage, you want to do unscalable things to learn as much as possible. You can see we were doing that with NPO Markets, right? And you can see some very famous startups all started that way. Airbnb, Stripe, Tinder, Reddit. They all started in the same way of doing incredibly unscalable things to learn as quickly as possible. So what are we doing here? We're applying a learning mindset. What do we want to learn? What do we want to build? How are we going to measure whether it actually worked? Now, the problem is our ego started to come into place. Okay, it always creeps in. It has a habit of doing so. So we've done really, really well up until this point. We raised some good money. We thought, yeah, we've got enough money now to build a product. But instead of leaning towards what our customers was telling us was the right product, which was the data preparation tool, we really wanted to build the marketplace. It was our baby. So we spent 3 months building this thing, okay? And we thought, yes, everyone's going to love it. They've told us they love it. We launched it, and nobody wanted to use it. We'd spent about 1/5 of our capital building that product, and nobody wanted to use it at all. So we had to go back to the drawing board. We had to look at what did our customers actually want. We turned this service into an actual product, a proper MVP. People started paying for it. And we thought, yeah, great. Okay, now they use the marketplace. They didn't. They told us they wanted a pricing engine. So we created this analytics pricing engine, turned it into an MVP so that they could do something with their data, price the asset on the marketplace. And we thought, yeah, of course, they'll come and use the marketplace now. But no, they didn't. They wanted a reporting tool. So we created the little service, turned it into a little product, and then we got lucky. They actually started using the marketplace. But along this journey, what we learned from our customers is they didn't want a marketplace. They wanted a SaaS business model with some tools that helped them solve some very specific problems. And we got lucky that they actually wanted to use our marketplace. They may not have wanted to do that in the end, and that was likely to be a throwaway product. So each step of the journey, always you're trying to learn. What you're doing is maximizing the return on your investment of time. Now, all of this evidence, this growing SaaS business and this marketplace led us to raising 2 million. And this is now the biggest non-performing loan marketplace in Europe, and it's international in all sorts of different countries. And there are thousands of investors using it to trade their different assets and price their portfolios. So some key lessons learned from this. Don't be a feature factory. Don't just go and build stuff because you want to. Okay, it's very, very easy to do that. Try never to do that. You want to build stuff because you want to learn. Now, what nearly every founder does is they start by trying to solve the problem in the right way, thinking that they found the right problem to solve. It's really key. One of the fundamental principles in design thinking is you need to find the right problem to solve first before you go and solve it the right way. And that means you need to go and discover and learn from your customers before you actually start building something. To do that really well, you need to think like your customer. So most startups think in terms of, okay, we're going to build an AI agent with an integrated architecture that's going to be deployed in about 5 minutes across their entire stack, and then they're going to be able to integrate data. And they think of the components of the thing, right? So they think in terms of the skateboard, they think of the trucks, the hardware, the bearings, the polythene wheels, and the actual skateboard itself. But most customers don't think like that. They think in terms of they want to do a kickflip in front of their friends so that they can look cool in front of everyone, right? There's a lot of emotional drivers involved in that. There's a lot of intangible outcomes. There's a lot of status involved. And you really need to get into your customer's head in order to understand this deeply. That requires you to move from self-centric thinking, okay, thinking about what can we sell to people, what can we build, how can we do it, we questions, to customer-centric thinking, trying to put yourself in the shoes of the customer, trying to really understand them deeply. So that brings me to some design thinking for startups, okay, some basic principles here. So this is a loop. We're always going to start with, what do we need to learn? Okay, how can we empathize with our customer? How can we understand them really deeply? Through that understanding, you're going to be asking them lots of questions. That's always the goal with customers. You're trying to learn about them as much as possible, and you're trying to remove your bias from this. We'll talk a little bit more about how to do those questions. Then, when you take your learnings, you want to define and construct a really clear set of problem statements so that you can focus on what the customer's actually trying to do, what they're trying to achieve, and why they're trying to do it. And use that to then generate really good ideas. Okay, do that as a team. Do it out loud. And then build prototypes which you can go and test. Will customers actually do something? Will it change their behavior? Will they start to act differently? That's the ultimate test of whether you've actually validated this or not. And then you go back to the drawing board. So if we break it down, the first step is always to empathize with customers. You need to talk to users before you decide what you want to build. And the very best founders that I know talk to at least 3 customers per week. Okay, this doesn't matter what stage you're at, whether you're a pre-seed, early stage company, pre-revenue, or whether you're a startup that's doing 10 million in revenue a year. The best founders I've ever met talk to at least 3 customers a week. So keep that principle in mind always. Those startup founders, they don't pitch solutions. They're always asking their customers questions. They're always trying to learn from them. And they're not asking leading questions, okay? Do you like our solution? Do you want to do this? Can you do this way? They're asking open questions. Can you tell me how you do this? What are your worst problems? It's always open questions. And what you're trying to do there is remove as much bias as possible. If you're looking for a shortlist or a cheat sheet of questions, and if you're looking for someone to follow on LinkedIn, this is Maya Voye. She wrote the best-selling book, The Go-to-Market Strategist. I highly, highly recommend it. And even though she uses some slightly potty mouth language like I do, she has a fantastic shortlist of questions here, right? If you meet with a customer and ask them these 11 questions, you're going to learn an enormous amount about them. Typically, in most interviews, you can ask 5 to 10 questions, but these are the very basics. I've got an interview guide, which I can share with anyone if they're curious to learn more. Follow up with me after this. Yeah. But the goal here, you'll notice they're all what, why, and how questions. None of them are leading. None of them start with do. None of them can end in yes or no. You're not looking to get a yes or no answer. You're looking to gather as much intelligence, as much knowledge as you possibly can. Okay? The goal here is to validate risks through your customer research. Okay, you're de-risking your startup over time and you're maximizing the return on investment. So this is all blurred out here because it's one of my co-founders got annoyed at me showing this, but these are customer profiles. These are interview designs. And what you're seeing is me mapping out the process here to create real clarity. Now, the best question to ask, my favorite one at the end of interviews, is normally as a founder, you go into a customer discovery discussion and you ask some questions that really relate to your product, your market, the problems you're interested in, the solution you're looking to create. But that can often mean you have quite a narrow focus and you don't fully understand the customer context. So one of the best questions you can ask in an interview is a really open question. If you had a magic wand, what would you change and why? And this is a question to really understand what is the most important thing to this customer. If they could create some magic in their lives, if they could change anything, what would they change and why would they do it? And that can lead you often to the most interesting insights from customer discovery. It can create the best interviews, and it can show you, oh my goodness, actually, this is the wrong problem for us to solve. This is the wrong problem for us to build. We should be doing something different over here if enough customers are talking about it. The next part, define. So in these user interviews, what you should be doing is recording every single one and really trying to understand what your customers are saying and trying to get them to be specific and concrete about what they need. So if they're saying things to you like, I want to do something faster, I want it to take less time, I want to reduce cost, or I want to reduce risk, you need to ask them questions like, well, can you tell me what that looks like? Can you quantify that? So you want to understand if they want to move faster, what does that mean? Well, we want to ship our product 5 times faster. We want to go from 5 weeks to 1 week. Okay, we want to go from 5 days to 1 day for a small feature. We want to reduce costs. Well, what does that mean? Well, we want to go from 5 grand to 10 grand, 10 grand to 5 grand. So we want to halve the cost, because that gives you a sense of what they're looking to achieve and what it looks like. And then ultimately, you want to validate your understanding. You want to play it back to them. Say to them, okay, you've told me this. Is that right? Because often when people say things, when they hear it out loud, they change it. So if we take my NPL Markets example, I showed you these quite vague customer outcomes and user needs, right? You want to be much more specific. You want to be really concrete. So instead of saying, oops, let me try and go back, sorry. Instead of saying the market lacked a structured bidding process, you want to say less than 30% of trades, okay? Instead of saying high legal costs, you want to say 250K per trade, 2.5 million a year, 1.75 million in waste. You're trying to get to numbers. Always the goal is get to numbers. Start really wide and then narrow over time. Be as specific as possible. That will lead you to creating really detailed personas. Okay, I think we're going to talk a little bit in some future sessions about how to actually do that, and I've got a guide on it. But always you want to create really clear personas, because that tells you whose problem are you solving, what are you selling to them, but most importantly, which customers should you avoid? Who don't you want to sell to? Okay, who don't you want to build for? Because you can't build a product for everyone. Otherwise, that turns into Frankenstein's monster. When you're ideating, a lot of founders just do them themselves on their own. I always try and encourage them to do it out loud. And a lot of founders start to self-critique ideas the moment that they come out of their mouth. The goal here is always really try and produce a high quantity of ideas before starting to look at the quality of ideas that you have, okay? Don't try and start to interrogate them too early. You want to go really wide and crazy before you go really deep into something. You want to start horizontal before you start going deep into different ideas. That's always the goal here. You never, ever want to fall in love with an idea, okay? That often puts you in the ego echo chamber. Founders who fall in love with their idea often get so attached to it that they can't let it go. And it shapes all of their decisions. And normally those decisions put them in the startup graveyard. So never, ever fall in love with your idea. Try to have some very strong beliefs about your idea, but hold them quite loosely. Be adaptive to change, always. Normally, what this kind of session looks like is this. It's a group of people in the room with post-it notes and ideas. This is the best way that I've found to do ideation. You can also do it on Figma workshops and Miro boards using lots of post-it notes. And over time, you can refine that in practice. But the best way of doing ideation is in person. I've always found that. It creates a kind of magic that's very hard to repeat. When you're prototyping, many people overcomplicate this, particularly now that we've got some wonderful tools like Lovable. You know, you can go out there and you can create some amazing prototypes, and you can go very deep down the rabbit hole, and you can go and create something amazing. I would try and stay away from that to begin with. I like creating pitch decks. It's the easiest way of doing it, and it forces you to be as simple as possible. And that's what you have to be with customers. You have to describe the problem that you want to solve, how you're going to solve it, and the outcomes that it's going to create. You have to talk about their workflow and how it fits into their day-to-day lives, and you can show a few visuals of it to map it out with them. But you want to try and limit yourself and not go too far too early, because you bake in so many assumptions about what the customer needs that sometimes it's really hard to tell what they actually want. So I try and start with a pitch deck and over time build towards some kind of prototype. Okay. When you're testing, the goal here is not just to listen to what people say. You want to try and watch their reactions. Okay. You're trying to validate, can you solve the right problem in the right way? Is this the right problem to focus on? And is the solution that you're creating solving it in the right way? Sometimes that requires you to ask lots of questions. They should be open questions, not closed questions. So you don't want to be asking them, do you like this? You know, is this good enough? You want to be asking them, tell me what you think of this. You know, what would you change? What's useful? What's not useful? You know, what's your view on this? What would make you use this? What's missing? Those kind of questions, and ask them why they're giving you those answers to really understand in detail. And ultimately, once you've done that learning about it, you want to see, does the customer want to act? Do they want to use it? Are they begging you to build it? Are they trying to pay you in advance for it? Or are they not acting at all? Are they not behaving? Do they not want to do anything? If that's the case, you've probably picked the wrong problem, picked the wrong solution, picked the wrong customer. And you're always trying to play with those three different variables. So this is the cycle and the loop that you're going through. And this is hopefully a useful introduction to the approach. How you're going to get started with this is you want to interview 5 to 10 people, okay, in a week or so. That's the goal. Trying to interview as many as you possibly can. And you really want to stay in the problem space. Don't pitch them solutions. Really try and understand their problems and use problem-focused language as much as possible. And then see if that generates some insights which you can use to then ideate, create a prototype, and then go and test it with them. It's the simplest way of approaching this. So the key here is never build in a vacuum. Get out the building, go and meet people, go and talk to them, and do it as regularly as you possibly can. So I actually went through that faster than I thought. So we've got plenty of time for QA. So I'm going to stop there. Tiffany, I can't see anything in.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my dashboard. Hold on. Because I changed it for up to 1,000 participants. So Jamie, can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. Yeah. So the top voted one is, how can you make sure that what you are building is within the market need? So the only way that I've ever done that is by regularly speaking to customers to make sure that I really understand their needs, and then testing whether I've got a good understanding of those needs as early as possible by creating little pitch decks and little prototypes and small versions of my product and seeing whether it changes their behavior. Ultimately, you want to get them to do something differently. That's the whole point of it. And the earlier you do that, the better position you're going to be to make sure you've properly understood the market need. One of the key things here is Customers might tell you what they want and what they need, but your job is not to build what customers say they want. Your job is to build a better solution. I think Henry Ford has a quote about, if I asked customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? And he built the car instead. And what many people misunderstand about that quote is, you're looking to learn. Do they want the faster horse? Do they want it with air conditioning? Do they want 4 people to be able to ride it? Do they want to do a long journey or a short journey? Do they want to do the journey in 20 minutes or less? Those are the things you're looking to learn so that you know, okay, I can build a bicycle or a motorbike or a car or a plane or a teleportation device. It's your job to come up with the solution. You have to figure out what the problem is that the customer has. Hopefully that's a good answer to that question. Should we go on to the next one, Tiffany, or do we want to let people talk?
Sure, we can go over those questions because we have more than 39 questions here.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw like the people like raising hands, but like guys, try to put your question here. And if we go over everything, like maybe I can go to the people like raising hands here.
Great. Okay, so second question is, since we're building a B2B startup, we're wondering, is it better to build everything ourselves first or reach out to similar companies in the early stage? I assume that's talking about, should you build something before going to customers or go to customers and then build something? So I'm going to go with that.
Or 8040, the people like who asked this question, maybe like you can clarify.
Whoever's asked this, can you clarify what you mean?
Yeah.
This is Rajiv. I want to ask, like, how do we validate our product without building it physically? Means, like, if I want to talk to my customers before building it, how can I show to them that I have this product? Before building a product, how do I ask to them? And it's like, before building it, how can I talk to them that I am going to build this one? That's what my question is.
Yeah, so the first way that I've always done that, whether it's with my own startups or with startups where I work in customer discovery, is we always create a pitch deck first. That's the first way that we do it, and then we used to create design versions of it, so Figma or Adobe XD or whatever. Now we just build stuff in Lovable or any of the other AI vibe coding tools to create a really simple version of it, not overcomplicated, not the best final version. The reason we do that is because we don't get any backend functionality. We know it won't work, but we want to show the vision to the customer and see if it aligns with them, and to see, do they start begging us to build it? Do they start trying to buy it in advance? That's what you're trying to see. If that's not happening, then you've got something wrong.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay. The questions are shifting around.
Oh, I checked the answered, so you can always
Okay.
like read first line. Yeah.
So I think the third one is, should the jobs to be done be defined at the level of roles or at the level of specific personas within that role? Yeah, this evolves over time. So as you interview more and more and more people, it's easier to start to create personas. But when you've only interviewed 5 people, usually only a few personas start to come out, and they're very reflective of the individuals that you've talked to, i.e. it's a very narrow data set, a very narrow set of requirements. So it usually relates to the specific person that you've talked to, but over time, as you start to talk to 10 or 20 or 30, and you start to see patterns within 50 or 60 or 100 customers, it starts to become clearer. Okay, this is a persona that we can create, and a persona is, sometimes it's based on one single role. So I could see that, for example, with my first startup, BondCube, we had a fixed income trader role, and it was always them who had the same set of requirements. But with NPL Markets, we had a we called them the head of NPL role, but it actually covered we call it the head of NPL persona, but it actually covered multiple roles. So it's different, and what you want to focus on is the needs. How common are the needs across different roles and personas, and break it down by the need itself. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, Jamie, I think we skipped the Sarah's question. She say like since we are building a B2B startup, we are wondering, is it better to build everything ourselves first or reach out to the similar companies?
I think it's a duplicate.
Oh, okay. Oh, got it.
Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Was a duplicate.
Great. Okay, Hassan, how can we articulate market traction when our business model is centered around fewer high-value customers rather than a broad use base? Yeah, this is very common when you're targeting very large enterprises, right? And it's also highly dependent on who are you articulating it to, because VC funds, for example, they like to say or tell you to pick a very narrow market to begin with, but they want to see a massive market out there. 10 billion is the minimum market size that they'll look at. So it can be very difficult to get that balance right. Whereas with angel investors, it's a lot easier because you can build quite a sustainable, healthy business with, a narrow market segment. So it can be challenging. Hassan, I'd love to know a little bit of background about this question so I can understand it more deeply. Who are you trying to articulate market traction to?
So thank you for this opportunity. So our startup is basically B2B. So we are targeting basically organizations that have HVAC systems. So these are very niche organizations. So our startup is about predictive maintenance, where we use AI to identify downtime and in order to improve the maintenance costs of these institutions. So these are very high value customers, but these are few as compared to a general population or volume-based revenue generation methods. So that is where I was wondering, how do we identify such customers when we are doing our market traction?
So is the question more about how do you find those customers, or is it more about how you tell the story to potential investors?
Are these two mutually exclusive, or are they both correlated to one another?
They're quite different, right? The way that you pitch to investors is normally quite separate to the way that you actually run your startup. As a founder, so with investors, you want to tell a story, right? And the story is always about, this is the customer type that we're starting with, right? It's a niche, it's small, it's specific. We have some unique advantages which we can go after and some unique problems that we can solve. And this is why we're better than anyone else. But that is step one. And this is a 10-year journey. And across the 10 years, we're going to go to customer B, C, D, E, F, G, H, J, I, and it's going to create a $10 or $20 billion market. And that means that we are going to get an exit at, $1 billion or more, right? That's the story that investors want to see. Whereas when you're going to actual customers and you're targeting them, you're ignoring that story. And what you're trying to do is figure out, where do these customers hang out? What channel are they on? How can I reach out to them in the most effective way? How can I stand out from the noise? And that is a very, very different process and approach from telling people about your traction to actually going and finding traction with customers. And that normally requires very good research on your customers, very good lead generation, high personalization, running outreach on channels where your customers hang out and doing it in a way that is different from your competitors, and then having a very engaging sales process and very good materials to draw them into your world so that you can start having conversations with them.
All right, that's perfect, because I wanted to understand the differentiation between these two ideas. And I think that was a very, very good explanation. Thank you so much.
Excellent. I'm glad. Okay. Tips to choose the right customers to interview. Yeah, always tricky. This is something that you need to learn. So normally, when you're interviewing customers, the number one problem that you're going to have to face, and I talk about this in my interview guide, is actually getting customers to come to interviews. So normally you have to try and incentivize customers. So you can find them, but they won't actually come to the interview. So what I use as a backup, if someone's not coming to an interview, is I always offer them like a $30 Amazon voucher. And weirdly, that seems to be the price point at which most people are like, oh yeah, I'll come and spend 30 minutes or 45 minutes of my time with you. And it always turns into an hour. So that's one of the best ways. Sorry, the question has disappeared. I wanted to refer back to the question because that's
It's okay. Like we answered one. Like I just like removed the answered one, so you can always like read the first one. But by the way, Amy, we have like 8 minutes now, so maybe like we can handle like I don't know 3-4 questions more. And I'm gonna like just archive this all the questions, and maybe like you can take a look and like some questions if you wanted to answer, we can give answer to the founders.
Yep, absolutely. Can I propose to government to make your product mandatory to companies? And in this case, government is your customer. I mean, in my experience, it's extremely difficult to make governments make a product mandatory, typically because that showcases a conflict of interest for the government. So in my experience, that's a hard no. We know letters of intent are important. However, it's heavy on the user side to sign this commitment. Is there any alternative solution for that? So you want the customer to make a commitment. You want it to not be extremely easy. If it's too easy, you're going to get a lot of false positives, right? People doing stuff when they don't really mean it. If people are struggling with it, it means they don't really care. So don't make it too easy for them. Make it easy enough. You know, a letter of intent should be 1, maximum 2 pages long, but don't make it too easy because otherwise you're going to get false evidence. What do you suggest we can do for testing our product? There is a library of experiments. There's about 50 to 60 different types of well-known experiments, and there are many more that are, you know, coming out as new hacks that you can use for testing a product. So without knowing much more about the deep context, it's very hard for me to make a recommendation, but I would highly recommend you read the book Testing Business Ideas by David Bland. I can put it in the chat. It is the best book I've ever read on how to come up with ways to test your product. David Bland. Just putting that in the chat. If my startup has a good idea, how can I validate its acceptance, particularly when targeting governments and authorities? Well, you need to go and talk to those people and showcase your idea to them. So with NPL Markets, we couldn't just organize interviews. We had to do a little bit of presentation about ourselves and about our idea to give us credibility. So again, we made a little pitch deck and we arranged meetings with them and we went and spoke with them and we presented ourselves and the kinds of problems we wanted to solve and the kind of technology we wanted to create. And then we turned that into an interview. So a little bit of bias, a little bit leading, but it helped us to get into those high status and difficult audiences. So that's a tactic that I've used in the past. And I've also done that with regulators.
It's my question. Also, I have something to clarify. My startup idea is like more into government stuff and to integrate the system with some CCTV cameras or what's so on. So I was thinking of who should I target? Should I target the software as a service companies or should I target the government directly?
To work with governments, you need to be a well-established company, and there's going to be lots of procurement criteria. There's going to be lots of due diligence. They're going to have lots of checkboxes to tick. So what I always recommend to every early stage startup is go and work with the customers that are the easiest to get in front of, the easiest to sell to, the ones who will buy your product very quickly. And over time, that group of people, which I call early adopters, okay, those are the people who are going to adopt your product very quickly. Over time, you can build towards working with the very, very big customers. They're called ideal customers. So you start with early adopters, easy to sell to, easy to work with, and over time, go to big customers.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Is it still worth using the design thinking process and conducting interviews before building? Can you all please go on mute? Someone's gone off mute and it's interrupting.
Yeah, it's one page.
Is it
8 July.
بس ريدر ولا ايش هذا
ايوه
I'm going to mute just for a second. Is it still worth using the design thinking process and conducting interviews before building, given AI and the no-code tools can create an MVP in minutes? If you do that, the most likely thing that you will do is build a solution that nobody needs. So I would highly recommend that you do not do that, because I did it in my first startup, right? We spent millions building a product that nobody wanted. It is a very stupid thing to do. So I really try and recommend you don't go down that path. Do the things that are difficult. There is a reason for doing them because it will make a stronger product in the end. Once you know what to build and you've got a lot of evidence and validation it's the right thing to build, then go build it. Then use AI and no-code tools. But I never start with building stuff. I start with learning, always. Okay, I think how can I determine if it's a lack of product market fit or if the market isn't ready yet to avoid giving up on a valid solution too soon? I mean, so I get asked this question a lot. Is the market right or is the product right? Okay, so always the market is right. It doesn't matter whether you're too early. It doesn't matter whether you think the product is brilliant. It doesn't matter whether the solution is absolutely perfect. If the market doesn't want it, and you have been pursuing that idea for over 6 months and you have no traction and nobody is interested, it doesn't matter whether you're too soon. You need to change and do something else because you're building a business. And if you haven't got customers and a product and revenue, then it's a hobby. So you need to shift to, I'm building a business, I need to go get customers, and I need to have something that people use. The market is never wrong in that. I'm sorry that's quite harsh, but it's meant to be delivered with love. After launching and gaining many users, should you rebuild or revamp the product if major UX changes are needed? Yes, always. You're always iterating. So you're always trying to make the product better. But what you're looking to do first is solve the problem, get people to pay for it, and then over time, make it more usable. So the first product should not be very good. Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, always says you should be embarrassed by your first product. Always you should be embarrassed. If you've over-perfected it, you've done too much. And then over time, you can make it look better, work better. Then you get problems with people, you are churning. Okay, you need to focus on churn, or onboarding doesn't work well enough. That's when you start to think about those changes.
Okay, Jamie, we are gonna take one more question as a last one, and I'm gonna share all the questions. Like we still like have 77 questions here, and I share all the things like to you as an archive thing. Yeah. So let's take a last one.
What can we learn from users by showing them a prototype they can't use yet? Yeah, it's a great question. So you learn whether they want to use it or not. If they can't use it yet, but they're desperate to use it, that tells you, okay, we've built the right thing here. If they're trying to pay you for it, or if they're trying to push you to build it, or if they'll pay you in advance of building it, then you know you're building the right thing. But if you show them something that they can immediately use, they're going to focus less on whether they actually want it or not, and they'll use it because it's easy to use it. So it's always a great move to try and have something that they can't use.
Great. Yeah, I think we are also running out of time. So founders, we always like structure our curriculums and like programs a little bit flexible based on the founders' requests and what they needed. So I'm gonna share all the questions to the lecturers who are handling the lecture. And just in case if we need like ad hoc lectures or something like discussion time with the founders about the topic, we are going to consider that one as well. So don't feel like, they didn't take all the questions. We are taking it. Yeah, because like we have also like a second, third lectures today. So we are gonna see you soon within 30 minutes for the next session. And I'm sure like I'm gonna share all the questions to the Jamie. Yeah, Jamie?
I'm happy to stay on for 15 more minutes if anyone wants to stay behind and ask more questions.
Oh, okay. So founders also wanted to
I have a question. Sorry, I didn't wrote in the chat, but I have a simple question. What if you are in the business itself or in the field, okay, and your startup or your business also will serve the field? So you know the need, you know the impact, you know the ideas that are needed to be added. So is there make any difference in the B2B and B2G businesses or startups. And thank you very much for the great session.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. What do you mean by B2G?
Government.
Business to government.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a SaaS solution. So this SaaS solution came after a lot of experience, more than 10 years, in the same field that I built or I want to build the startup with idea. So does this make any difference? Yani, or it is the same steps need to be followed in this situation?
So the most dangerous thing for early stage founders is assumptions. So assumptions always kill startups. It's the most common thing that I see. So if you take my first example of my first startup, BondCube, so our founding team had been bond traders for 30 years. So you think they were deep, deep experts. One of them was the best bond market trader one of the best in the world, right? So you think we'd know, but we got it wrong because we built it based on the way that he worked and a few others in our team worked. We were wrong. We should have gone and spoken to our customers. So, and I see this with startups a lot. It's great to have a really good foundational knowledge and to understand the problem deeply, but you should be very, very afraid of your own assumptions and your own ego. You should try and go, okay, this is what I believe. Let's go and confirm it with as many customers as I possibly can. And if I confirm it, great. But if I learn something, then I need to change what I'm doing. It's very easy to do that. It just requires you talking to people. Once you've built a product, you've spent money and time on that product. And that means you have to get a return on investment in it, and you get very attached to it. And that can also be dangerous. So I try and push people, play in the free and easy space of questions and discussions and customer discovery before you go and commit to building anything.
Hi everyone, sorry to interrupt. I have one question and a quick question. So as a start point, how we can choose the customers to ask to start our brainstorming the ideas?
You want to break down the customers that you're targeting first. Have I got that right?
Yes, I do believe that we have to break them down, but I'm not sure who's the customers, even if we are just trying to start with an idea.
Yeah, so you have to, so the way that I always do this is you need to think about whose problem are you solving. If you don't know, then you need to go and speak to a lot of people in the area. So let's say it's healthcare. You need to go and speak to doctors at hospitals, doctors at small clinics. You might need to go and speak to the people who buy software. So you need to speak to a lot of people. You can see we did that with NPR Markets to go and figure out who is the right customer. So you go very wide and then you narrow down over time. And it means you have to do many more interviews, but you get a very clear picture of your market and who your customer actually is.
Great, thank you so much.
Hi, Jimmy. I have a question if you don't mind.
Yeah, we've got a queue of hands, so I want to try and respect the queue of hands.
I've been raising my hand for, I don't know, for an hour right now, but I don't know.
Yes, so you were second in the list, so I'll go for you first.
Yeah, go for the first.
So I think I can't see the names fully, so apologies.
SafeByte, right?
Yes,
yeah,
I think
SafeByte. I am Hussein. Yes, I am Hussein. SafeByte is my startup name. Yeah, I had 2 previous startups, but I didn't have a luck to continue. I think market validation almost tricky to validate, and definitely is very, very, very important to trigger the right customer and validate your product. I heard a lot, how can you hunt the right customer, but how can you tailor the questions to get the proper answer without leading them for a nicer answer, so misleading for your product?
Yeah, you always have to stick with who, what, how, and why questions. Never ask do, can, should, would, if questions. So that's the way I always think about it. But I've got a very long, comprehensive guide on the kind of questions you should answer. and ask. And I've got some examples of how to design customer interviews, so I can send those to everyone as a kind of resource.
Should we do this validation only in early stage, or we should do validation from time to another? For example, we are now in the first week of the ideation of our startup, so we can do the validation. Maybe after a while we should do it again in such a stage. After launching, after MVP.
Yeah. So I'll take just this question from you, and then I'll go and try and answer some others.
Thank you.
I have to respect everyone, but it's a great question. So I always say to everyone, you should be speaking with 3 customers a week, and you should be asking them questions every single week. But what I see most startups do is they go through a period of customer discovery and learning, then they go and build some stuff, and then they forget to go back and do more customer discovery. So my recommendation is do it continuously. But if you can't do it continuously, then you need to keep going back to it, and you need to schedule it in what you do. Always. Never stop doing it.
Thank you, Jimmy.
My pleasure. So I think Umola dropped down the queue. I think you were second.
Yeah, I was there. I lowered my hand by mistake, but I'm here.
Go for it.
So my startup is B2B2C, and I have 3 different type of customers. I just want to know who is the most important customer out of my customers. So my startup is targeting content creator, e-commerce stores owners, and a general shopper. So out of these 3, who is the most important out of them, and who should I target the most so I can validate my idea?
Yeah. So in B2B, normally you have a user, you have a buyer, you have a decision maker. They all have different problems and different levels of pain. And in B2B2C, that gets extended out because you're trying to help the end user, but often your B2B customer is the one that's paying you. And you can have all of these challenges and differences. So what I always try and do is focus on how can you solve the end user's problem first? Okay, how can you make them absolutely love you? And then how does that then help the B2B customer that you're going after? Okay, so you have to get both right, and one of them ultimately has to pay you. And so you have to get it right well enough to find out who is the decision maker and the buyer, so that you can not just solve the problem, but get paid for solving it.
Thank you.
Pleasure. I think Daily Orders is next.
Hi, Jimmy. Thanks to give me chance to ask my question.
Pleasure.
My platform, it's in MVP now. So what fast and cost-effective method would you recommend it for testing the value of MVP using design thinking?
Yes. So, okay. There are 2 types of interviews which I like to run. There are many more, but let's just keep it simple for 2 types. Okay. The first is discovery. Okay. So we're going pure trying to figure out and ask questions and not trying to put anything in front of the customer. You're trying to discover. The next type, so you go from discovery. Once you've done good discovery, you've learned about your customer, you've created a product or a prototype, and then you want to go and validate it with them. You then go into validation style. That's when you're showing the product. It's much more narrow. We're trying to work out, have you got the right solution here? Have you picked the right problem? Do you solve it in the right way? Have you got the right customer? So many people who have MVPs, they're running a different type of interview. They're not running an interview where it's pure, wide, we're trying to learn everything, it's nice and wonderful. You're trying to really just validate, have we got the right thing here? And often that means putting it in front of customers, getting them to use it, getting them to test it, and seeing, do they stick around? Does it solve the problem in the right way? Will they actually pay for it? Do they get really annoyed if they're only able to use it for 2 weeks and you take it away from them? That's what you're trying to figure out there, to understand, have you built the right MVP? And should you keep building on top of that MVP, or should you build something different?
Yes, thanks, John.
Pleasure. Mohammed Alawami?
Yes, thank you for allowing us to ask more questions in the extra time. So my question is about maybe harder markets that you can go into even at the early stage. For example, the Saudi Arabian market, the expectation is much higher than other markets, even very, very early products. And I've seen many companies that build great products, for example, in UAE, where people are maybe more welcoming early stage ideas, and they come here and they fail because people want something really, really mature, doesn't crash. What would be your strategy to come into markets that I would say are less forgiving of startup ideas? They want things that are more mature, more ready to use. That's perfect.
Yeah, so the challenge there is that those are the people you're describing are not early adopters, and startups always need early adopters. So what you're trying to look for, let me just share my screen. This is an article that I've written. So there's a big difference between early adopters, right, and ideal customers. Okay, so early adopters, they're customers who help you achieve this initial validation. They make quick decisions, they have a high pain tolerance, they're not that bothered about a perfect solution, whereas ideal customers, they're looking for a very mature, sophisticated product. And that can be really hard to navigate as an early stage startup. I want to stop showing this. Hopefully I've stopped showing my screen. Let's just turn it off. So how do you navigate that as a startup? So for my startup NPL markets, we were going to some of the largest hedge funds in the world, Apollo, Bain. These are really big, high status people. They get paid millions a year. They are all wearing bespoke Savile Row suits. They all have watches that are worth 10 grand. They all drive Ferraris. You know, these are people who they are big status people. And you can't go in there with a crappy product. So the way that we got around that is we created an amazing looking pitch deck and we created an amazing looking prototype. So this was a product that we believed was sort of showcasing the vision, and you could do this very easily in Lovable, and it made us look very sophisticated without having actually built very much. And so it's not with the best practice, right? Because you want to go in there, interview something, and then make it. So you have to do more of the validation stage with those types of customers. You have to look really good whilst having nothing and fake it a little bit with those customers and ask them lots and lots of questions in that meeting that you have with them to see whether you've got it right, whether they want to move forward, whether you've got the right kind of solution, and quickly change that prototype and quickly validate it with them. So that's the only real way that I found of getting around really high status customers, if those are the ones that you're forced to work with first.
I see. Okay. So, and how do you identify your early adopters? Like, because those seems to be not your early adopters. Like, I guess you just ended up not working with early adopters.
Yeah, I mean, I learned very early on. So my first sales team was built up of some of the most experienced salespeople in the market, in the bond market. They sold to all of the largest hedge funds and asset managers in the world. And we spent nearly a year trying to convert those clients, and they wouldn't work with us because we would simple fact, we're an early stage startup. So
Yeah.
I realized pointless. So I then decided, right, I'm going to go to the smallest customers in the market.
I see.
That has become my philosophy for every single startup that I've ever worked with. Go for the smallest customers first, learn with them, get them to pay you a little bit, build your first product with them, turn it into a profitable revenue generating business, and then go after the big boys.
I see. Great. Thank you for clarifying. Makes sense.
Pleasure. Omaima? No, I've got that completely wrong. I'm sorry.
I'm always doing the same.
I'm so sorry. Please go ahead with your question.
Okay, so I have two actually. One, you mentioned in this workshop that you need to be tested and validate your idea multiple times. So we've been 2.5 years working on this an idea. We still not getting any revenue, but we launched a 3 version of MVP, and now we work into pre-MVP, pre-launch for our MVP. So you mentioned if the user will tackle you, they want a new features, they want to even give you money before you even launch it. The challenge we face is that we already been building AI agent specifically on mental health. So when we do an interview, a lot of people do not want to talk about their mental health and their challenge because of stigma and privacy and security. So how can I, even in this new version we gonna launch, how can I validate that people actually want to pay? Since the two MVB before we build it, we get more than 2,000 people sign up, but no one actually could convert it to be a subscription user.
Yeah. So let's look at the components, right? So if you break it down, have you got the right customer? Have you got the right problem? Have you got the right solution? Have you got the right business model? Those are the four things that you're playing with in the beginning. And if all of those are working together, that means you're fully validated and you're on your way to product market fit. Now, it sounds like you've got a trust issue with your users, but it also sounds like they use your product, but they don't convert, which means either the trust issue prevents them from wanting to go further in the product, or the product doesn't solve the problem in the right way, or you've got the wrong customer. And I've worked with 8 mental health AI apps this year alone. So I see a lot of them. And the majority of them that I see, they start to monetize the B2B healthcare system, and so that they can provide it to their customers. That's what I've seen the majority of them pivot to do, rather than focusing on monetizing the end user.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree with you. In the beginning, we focused on B2B, but because of the workspace here in Saudi Arabia, that much of high resistant actually, so we actually converted to B2C. We have a lot of people using the free version. 80% of our user actually is men. We launched our first marketing and ads and campaign. We get more than 200K impression, and a lot of people actually want it. There's a people connect me, they want features that analytics our user, our behavior, customized and everything. But when we go to the revenue, is the main challenge that I have. Yeah, and this is the main challenge for me. The other one,
So let's just focus on this one, because I don't think we have time for two, and this one's absolutely critical. If you cannot monetize what you've already built, then you have a massive issue. And I meet many startups who have great products, but they are not earning any money from them. And they keep building and building and building around the same problem and the same customer and the same solution. If they're not paying you, but you've got great user acquisition, it means you've picked the wrong problem to solve. And you need to push them to pay and be really disciplined about going, look, you pay for this or we take it away. And if you take it away and nobody cares about it, then you have to look at what you've built and go, right, that hasn't worked for us as a business. We need to think about something else. And you need to be ruthless about that. And it's really hard to do it, but it's really key that you do.
okay.
I'm going to go. We can talk about it more in a one-on-one session or individually, but I need to move on and answer more questions, and we can unpack it more, because I'm sure there's a lot more detail there. But let's pause on that for now, because it's a great topic of conversation, but I need to make sure I answer more people's questions. So thank you. Abdulaziz.
By the way, Jamie, I need to close this session within 4 minutes, because Yura also waiting to dry run his session as well. So
okay, last question then.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello. Thank you for your time and this valuable session. Actually, I have one quick question. I know the interviews is very valuable and we have to do it, but if we consider to use the surveys as a second tool, what's the smartest way to build the question there, or the journey to make the survey going to يعني, more than 100, for example, interview. And we can use the data later to do some analysis to build the right يعني, numbers.
Yep. So it's a great question, and surveys are a fantastic tool. You need to think about why are you using them and what stage. So the reason why we recommend interviews first is because it allows you to create a very big picture and empathize and have a very clear understanding of the user. So if you've done that, right, let's say you've done 30 interviews, I would then say to you, now you've learned a lot and you've got a clear picture of your market, you know what problems you solve, you know the right product to build. If you're ticking all of those boxes and you're saying to me, Jamie, I now just need to collect more data at scale, then I would go into surveys, because what surveys do is they shift from qualitative data, what people say, how they feel, to quantitative data. And I know you have free text boxes, but trust me, when people are thinking too much about an answer, you're not getting the real answer. So
exactly,
surveys have a purpose to get much larger data sets, but you can only do them when you're ready to do them, and you're only ready to do them once you've done a lot of interviews.
Yes, I agree with that. But can you add something to have a smart way to build it? Yani, for example, if I have a seller and buyer and I'm the marketplace in the middle, should I build 2 surveys, or should I build one mixed survey? How we can do this?
You usually build a survey based on the customer type. You should have no more than 10 questions, ideally 5.
Yes.
And you want the user to be able to do a mixture of free text, but also selection.
Yeah, okay, clear. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to have to stop there, Tiffany. Thank you so much for facilitating and being patient whilst I get super enthusiastic and answer lots of questions. Thank you all very much. You'll be seeing more of me. Please connect with me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much. Done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you soon in the second workshop. And Jamie, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
Bye.